Lockdown in response to the COVID-19 pandemic brought about a time of upheaval and uncertainty. The closure of schools and the shutdown of extramural activities brought a new set of challenges. Chirani Meyer is a veteran home education mom and administrator of home education support groups. One of these are for home educators in the Western Cape, and another group, Lockdown Schooling SA, started in response to parents suddenly having to take on the role of teacher. Chirani, the number of members in both these groups increased at a surprising rate as parents reached out to home educators for advice and assistance. What are the most common concerns that parents of school-going kids had or possibly still have?
Yes, thanks, Anil. What we've noticed on this group is that parents can be divided up into two groups. The parents who would like to keep their children at home and the parents who feel it's safe to send their kids back to school. So the parents who feel that it's safe to send their children to school feel that the research is convincing that the children are safe at school. And a lot of these parents are working and they have no one to look after their children while they're working. Ask Africa did a survey and over 60% of their respondents said this was their biggest worry. So when schools reopened, the children went back and now they are back home because of infections that have been occurring at school. So what would happen is if somebody got COVID, they would be in quarantine for 14 days, and anybody else that had contact with them would also be in quarantine, and it would take 3 days for the school to be decontaminated. But unfortunately, this doesn't just happen once. So this is a repeating pattern, and it is causing even the parents who decided to send their kids back to school to have to reconsider keeping them at home and homeschooling them. And both groups of these parents, the ones that were happy with sending their kids to school and those who preferred to wait until they felt the COVID threat was not as serious, have got the same concern. What about the child's academics? This is the main concern. And they are worried about having to weigh up health concerns versus their children's futures.
Now, during this lockdown period, I've heard parents sing the praises of teachers and counting the days till their kids could return to school. Why did parents find it so hard to teach their children at home?
Well, first of all, these parents have been thrown into the deep end. Basically, overnight, they were found to be responsible for their child's education. And this with the looming threat of COVID hanging over them. So the situation was stressful to begin with. Then you've got the children at home 24/7, and many of these children have been going to school since they were very little. So there's this whole relationship dynamic that comes in, and there's lots of conflicts and shouting because boundaries have to be reset. Children are upset because they can't see their friends. Parents are upset because they've got these kids all day. Then also the problem with the curriculum, most of the parents who have children at home are doing the school curriculum, which is in itself very content dense. But now these parents not only have to do the current schoolwork, they also have to play catch up. And that is really a lot to put on these parents and these children. And some kids are doing schooling for most of the day. And if it's online schooling, they're stuck from the computer all day, which is not healthy. Some schools do give support and have been very supportive and helping the parents. But then again, some parents have said they haven't found as much support from their schools. So they have to look elsewhere. And thankfully, because of the lockdown, schooling at home, Facebook, they could come to homeschool parents who've been doing this a while, and we've been able to give them some advice. And then you also have a situation where parents are not all at work, and some of them are still at home. So they have to juggle work and homeschooling, which is another element in this disastrous mix.
So would you say that this time of schooling or homeschooling, does that give a fair representation of what home education is like?
No, not at all. Most people who decide to homeschool have had time to think about it. They've weighed up the pros and cons. They've done the research. They've discovered that CAPS isn't the only option for them. They have a wide variety of curricular options they can choose from, and they've been asking questions and slowly easing into it, unlike parents who've been put into crisis schooling overnight, and it's just been a fight for survival. So I would think that in this time of unprecedented crisis, one should think a little bit out the box. And parents should actually use this time, instead of thinking that the whole school year is lost, the child's academics are way behind, they're not going to reach their goals in time, and their whole future is destroyed. They should see that this is actually an amazing opportunity, because they can take their child's learning experience and they can reevaluate the whole learning experience. First of all, do they feel the curriculum is working for their child, whichever curriculum they're on? Do they feel that this curriculum is preparing their child for the big bad world? Do they realize that CAPS is not the only option? There are other options for matric for their children. For instance, the American High School Diploma, the American GED, or the Cambridge system. If they want to write a CAPS matric, they could still do it through online institutions. But school is not the only place where a child can be educated. And I think we need to change that mindset. And Dr. Mostert, who's from Stellenbosch University Institute for Futures Research, actually said that this lockdown has given parents time to rethink the whole school story, because the education they're paying for at schools is actually found for free online. And a lot of parents are realizing this, and they're wondering, well, what's the point? Maybe I should look at other options. And I think they should be brave enough to do so. And homeschoolers have been helping where we can to show them, yes, don't worry, we've done this, our children are fine. They're not living in the basement forever. They can find jobs, they can have productive lives. And in fact, some of them, many of them are actually thriving compared to their peers who went through the school system. I think children could benefit by learning at home, because it's a time for them to reconnect with their parents, get to know each other again, because we have such busy lives. The parents are at work, children are at school, we get home, and then it's homework, and then it's just stress, go. And they only have weekends and holidays to really spend time. And now they are kind of forced to spend time together, and hopefully they will use that time productively to reconnect. I think children also find the home environment generally less stressful, and also less time consuming. You don't have the school run, you don't have assemblies, you don't have queuing up for class, you don't have first checking everybody's homework, settling the class down. And you've got none of those impediments to time. The children can get done, do their work, and be done, and then have the afternoon free to do whatever they want to, pursue their interests, maybe do extramurals, online at this stage. But maybe go find something on YouTube they would like to explore. Maybe learn, I have online guitar lessons or art lessons. Parents can also use this time to observe their children and see where they might have holes in their learning, especially with subjects like maths, where children say they're struggling, they can't do maths. But if you actually just take it a couple of steps back, you see, there's one concept they totally missed. They don't understand this at all. And the parent can actually help fill that gap. So if the child does go back to school soon, he'll actually go back as a stronger mathematician, because now he sorted out his problem that the teacher wouldn't maybe have the time to deal with. So parents can look at that. And they can also, like I say, start feeding their children's interests, because if you talk to any child in high school and you ask them, what would you like to do? The response that I've noticed is normally, I want to be a brain surgeon, I want to be an industrial psychologist, or a lawyer, all of them. So you're thinking, oh, wow. And then you realize, well, these are now the cool professions to go into, but it's really not realistic. Not everyone can be a brain surgeon. So if the child has the time to actually pursue their interests and see what they're interested in, it might give them a better idea of what they want to go study after school. I think our kids need that breather, they need that space sometimes. And then also parents who work from home can actually find that they can actually use the time at home and educate their children in the same space. They can just reschedule around their work and around the child's education. And schooling happens when it happens, and you've got the time for it. It doesn't have to be between certain hours. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I just think parents need to think differently, think out the box. And there is definitely hope. This is not the end of the world. COVID does not mean the end of your child's education. They don't have to lose a year. Just reconnect with your child, have a look at the education, connect with people who are homeschooling, see what your options are, and then take the plunge. It's scary, but it's very worth it.
Thank you for that message of hope. I just wanted to add something, that this is an exhausting time, trying to cope with all the change and adapting to it. And I think parents should allow themselves the grace to some days be tired, and have a day where the child educates himself. You don't have to sit with him and necessarily teach them. But as you mentioned, go and explore YouTube documentaries, or browse through the library at home and find a book on the bookshelf that you haven't read for ages. That parents also give themselves a breathing space, because we're also struggling to adjust to this new time.
No, definitely. And you don't have to pay a fortune for homeschooling. People have this weird idea that homeschooling is very expensive, and I don't know where they get that idea from, because there's so much free information on the internet. It's remarkable. And even if you stay in an area where you don't have internet connection, there's somebody you know with a skill that can teach you something. It's connect with people around you, see what resources you have, be creative, use what you have around you, and use it for your child's benefit, because it's the parents have a right to act in their child's best interests, and it's not just a right, it's a mandate, and it comes naturally to most of us. We want what's best for our kids. So think out the box. Don't be depressed by the whole situation. Snap out of it. Make a plan. We parents, mom up, dad up. This is what we do,
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the key is education is not just bookwork. Chirani, thank you very much for your time. And just for parents who are still wondering, have questions, have not yet joined the group, can you just tell us how they can connect with the Lockdown Schooling group?
Yes, just go to Lockdown Schooling @home SA. That's the Facebook group. If you are just schooling at the moment temporarily, if you would like to homeschool permanently, you can go to educating @home SA, and you can also join that group. If you'd like to find out about the legalities of homeschooling, you can join the Pestalozzi Trust. They will be able to help you, especially with registering and deregistering. There has been a lot of confusing messages being sent out by the DBE. So just for your own peace of mind, connect with them. If you have tried to register with the Department of Education, you've had no luck. Some parents have been saying they've registered in May and they haven't had any feedback yet. Some have said the department has told them they can't do home visits, so they can't register them. The advice is that you please keep all the forms that you did submit, and that you just carry on homeschooling, because you cannot wait for them to finally get back to you. It's too much time will be lost. But in general, chat to people at Pestalozzi. They're very friendly, they're very helpful, and they will point you in the right direction. I think maybe we could put some links up on this at the bottom of this talk, just for parents who didn't catch those links.